Hey guys, you're watching the Best Practices Show, where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all over the country. And we're going to examine one of the hottest topics today is how do we get to more restorative work with our patients through whitening, from one of the top dental assistants that has ever lived, Shannon Brinker. You're going to love this, so do not miss this. Grab a pen and hit the share button. We'll see you in a second. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show. We are having so much fun doing these. And again, thank you for all of your feedback and your comments, especially over the weekend. We got a lot of really good ones. So thank you very much. And just a couple show notes before we jump into this, because today's going to be hugely valuable. We are shooting this live on Facebook. So if you have questions while the broadcast is live, or even if you're watching it later, please add some questions to the feed, and I'll make sure I ask Shannon directly the questions, because I want to make sure you're getting the right information on the questions that you might have. And the other thing is, we love the questions so much that we're giving away another free Apple iWatch this week, plus 2 tickets to Activate, which is our practice growth seminar, for the best question asked on any post anywhere. So please ask great questions. We love, 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 love your questions. So thank you so much. Now, my guest today, I've known her for a very long time, and I often joke, I told you this before we got started, Shannon, you're one of the best dental, if not the best dental assistant that's ever lived. I mean, some of the things you're talking about, I don't even know what you're talking about half the time. I'm like, that's brilliant. And you're also an incredible speaker, educator. You're out there a ton. You just got back from the AACD, and you're talking about one of the most controversial but extremely helpful things in dentistry, which is the whitening process. Now, if people don't know who Shannon Brinker is, tell us your story. Like, I know your story, but tell them who you are and how you got to be in this role as such a great educator.
Well, I was really blessed a long time ago to actually work for a dentist who really taught me everything pretty much when it came to cosmetics. As I worked for him for almost 13 years, I went to work for John Cranham and here in Virginia. That's why I moved to Virginia. But we spent a lot more time with those patients, and we started really doing a lot more whitening, a lot more restorative, but most importantly, spending the time. And I think that was when I really started understanding that it wasn't about what we were doing for them as much as it was spending the time and getting to know our patients. And as I started doing more and more of that, evaluating products, teaching more team, where I really felt was my heart, and where I really wanted to be was with those patients, spending more time. And of course, I'm a talker, so the only way I could do that is if I was able to spend a lot more time with those patients by myself, so I could kind of be selfishly with that. And I can tell you that, again, I'm so blessed to have worked with so many wonderful people on the way, including you, spending time with you and your team. It's just been a blessing to have worked for people who have focused on cosmetics, did really great consults, taught me a lot about restorative and occlusion, and most importantly, taught me about those patients and how important they are to our practice. So I'm really blessed.
Yeah, well, we are equally as blessed. I mean, you are such an integral part of teaching the assistants that we work with all over the country how to get better and really function at a much higher level. They think, and what's most important is just watching their eyes light up when they get a chance to really impact patients' lives, and you do that so well. Now, why you just came back, and people are so excited about this topic. You had tons and tons of people attend your courses at the AACD. Why is this topic such an important topic and a hot topic right now in dentistry?
I think when we look at what can bring patients in the door, we hear this all the time, how can I get more patients? How can I get more people? Whitening is, there's millions of people who whiten their teeth every year. And what we find is a lot of times we try to keep those patients from just going to a store and buying a product that really is not recommended by a practice or by a dentist. And so one of the things that my doctor and I really sat down to look at is how can we give patients, pretty much anyone that comes in our practice could afford to do whitening, which makes them happy, right? right? And I always say this, but it's so true. I never, ever got a hug for root canals, right? People don't hug you. They don't love you. They don't, want to squeeze you and thank you for changing their lives over that, even though they should, right? But whitening makes people happy, and it makes them feel good about themselves. And I think sometimes we have such a hard time, and we were just talking about this yesterday, telling people the things that we need in dentistry and the things that they need. We hate that sometimes, But whitening makes everybody happy, from a young teenager all the way up. And I always say this, that, as a mom, I'm frugal about what I spend on myself, but I'll spend $1 million on my kids, and we'll take them out of braces and do whitening. It make them feel good, even the young adults now. And the best thing is for us to be able to monitor them and take that whitening serious. I mean, I can remember we never did that before. And now we've got something for everyone, no matter what their pocketbook size is, where there's a pre-filled system, a custom take-home system. And my favorite is the one we do in the office, because we get to spend more time. It's changed lives, right? Makes mine happy too. So it's a good deal.
Absolutely. Well, and the materials have changed so much in the last 3, 4, 5 years alone, like dramatically, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think they said this year there were probably another 100 new whitening products released. And that's crazy, all different types, from pens to pre-fill systems to the strips. My gosh, somebody told me the other day they've got something where you can actually spray on the teeth now. It's just crazy. But, we want those patients getting the whitening from us, because I hear this all the time, where they went to one of those places in the store or in the mall, and, they got burned. I had one patient that got burned. It's just not being cared for the way it should. But I can tell you that I don't want my patients going to places like that, right? I want them to do it in my chair, because they are our patients. And most importantly, that time that we spend with them always leads to more treatment. I mean, I learned that from you. I mean, the more time, the more treatment. And it's so true. And I never really honestly believed that would happen. And it does. So want more treatment, you got to spend more time. And it comes with the whitening, I feel.
Well, and trust is thread throughout the whole thing too, which is crazy important. Now, I want to ask you this question, because a lot of times restorative docs, they don't put enough emphasis on the whitening. It's loosey-goosey, it gets looked over. What are some of the trends that you're seeing? And I want to talk about the want and need thing too. So the first thing is do you feel like restorative dentists are just totally overlooking this now in a lot of respects?
Totally overlooking it. When I ask the team, like, how many patients do they do a month? They'll say, oh, we do a lot. And I'll say, well, what's the number? Well, they'll say like 5. I'm like, 5? I do 20 in one day, Wow. And so I think they get shocked. But what you have to understand is, even though a patient could already be a patient of record, a lot of times they might be a patient of record for a long period of time, and we didn't ask them, because we just assume, well, they've been a patient for a long time. But one of the things that we started doing was we really started talking more about it. When you watch my practice, you didn't see anything to even say we do whitening. So patients really never ask for it. And so that's important. The second thing is I think, looking at whitening and taking it really serious. For me, patients, and even including myself, when I first started doing whitening years and years ago, I would do it for a couple of days and I'd stop because we all got busy. But now I kind of look at them with those Google eyes you talk about, Don't tell me, you're going to come in and pay this kind of money because it's cash, right? I mean, they're going to write a check today. Interest doesn't cover it. But I don't want to hear you didn't do it. And I think sometimes we never see them back. I know that. We don't look at the shade. We don't take photos of the shade. So we take it really serious. So even though they're a patient of record, they have to come back through me for a consult. And in that consult, I'm assessing what whitening they've done before. I'm looking at their teeth. We're deciding together what works best for them, but I'm not basing it upon, hey, do you want to do it at night? You want to sleep in it? You want to do it an hour a day? Whitening should never be done that way. It should be based upon the shade. The whitening for that particular patient has to be based on shade and where they are, And a lot of patients can do those pre-filled systems, but some can't, based upon the shade. And we take it really serious. And I think once they see that we're taking it serious, we take the photos serious, we take those appointments very serious to make sure they're coming back in, getting those photos before and afters. Man, we get kisses, hugs, the best patients, referrals. It's really amazing what it's done for our practice. It all started with that whitening. I mean, it's the greatest thing a doctor could do.
Yeah. Now, walk me through this. When you talk about the appointments, somebody watching this thinking, gosh, that is a lot of appointments. Are you doing those appointments every day? Because you have a very unique system in the way you teach this, right? So when are you doing those appointments?
Well, it's hard, Kurt, because one of the things that we were seeing was like I would be in a room with the doctor doing a crown prep, and they would say, "Hey, Shannon, can you go over here and make some whitening trays? This patient wants to do whitening," or "Hey, Shannon, this patient's got an in-office whitening," and I'm like, "Well, gosh, I got to make temps over here." You're looking at the schedule. It was just sporadic whitening, and so one of the things that we decided was, what if we put it all on one day? And that could either be start out with a half a day where we just put patients all on that one day, and we would just say, just like you say in your courses, you want a 10 o'clock or do you want a 2 o'clock, whatever, because Shannon, our whitening specialist, works on this day, and this is the day she does all the whitening. And we thought it was going to be really hard to get patients to accept, but can I tell you, it's been so easy. I mean, it's all on one day. And the best part about that is if it's a new patient, I do have the doctor come in, and have them assessed to make sure they're a good candidate. But I can tell you that the more that I do, the more efficient I get. So there have been days where I've seen as many, Kirk, as 24. 24 is the limit.
Wow.
But I have seen 24 patients in one day. I mean, and that is no lunch, nothing. I mean, we are busting all the way through lunch, right? Wow. But even tomorrow, I got 17 tomorrow. 17. That's crazy, right? But I get really good at it. You get fast, and it's not just me. I've got tons of assistants on my team that do this. It's just one day we focus on it. So we get better at taking our photos. We get more efficient at giving our spiel. We're able to actually pour up the models, make the trays right there. They do not come back. So you're cutting down on chair time. But now patients know when I'm there, I'm only doing whitening on Tuesdays. And can I tell you, it is my favorite day of the week. I mean it. I love it. It is so much fun. And to create that, I have my own little white lab coat. It says whitening specialist on it. It's got little blings on it. We really talk it up, and it's a lot of fun. But it also lifts that assistant up, It makes us feel like we're doing more than just suctioning. And I think that is why it's been so well received, because now we're making people happy. We really feel like we're a part of that team. And it's just a great feeling.
Well, I can imagine it's a low point entry into the practice for bigger possibilities. Sometimes people come in very limited budgets. You get to know them, and it's something simple that can change their life in a way. Now, I do have a lot of questions like on fees, like how would you structure this? Yes. I'm sure you get those questions too.
I do. So there's 3 fees that we charge. So in our practice, we decided we wanted to have something for everybody. Okay, everybody, no matter who they were. If you go into a store, you can buy Crest white strips for about $42. So we decided let's do $50 for the pre-filled system, let's do $99 for the custom take home, and let's do $199 for the in-office. Now that does include trays. And I will tell you that the cheapest way to do it is I sat down with my doctors and I said, let's do this, but let's look at how can we get it really affordable for the patient, but also not break the bank for the practice, right? So we buy everything in bulk. And when I say that, we buy like 40 syringes at a time because you're paying for that packaging. So that's how you're going to be able to really lower the fee and be able to really charge that great fee. But remember, you don't want to give it away for free because there's no value there. So you got to charge something. But 50 we found everybody can do if it's a good pre-filled fee for that, and it's also $50, $99, and $199. Really, anybody can do this, but you can't do the in-office without having those trays too, because we're finding that really gives them the best results. And again, buying in bulk, the syringes cost $3 for the take-home, then it being $10 for the in-office. So it's so cheap and economical when you can do that, and you can really lower the fee for, again, anyone to afford it.
Yeah. And I've heard you talk about this, the want and need conversation. Why is this particular component so important? Because a lot of times we love talking with patients about what they want, and then sometimes you see what they need. But sometimes you said just give them what they want. Sometimes they do want whiter teeth. You're talking about periodontal disease, maybe some broken down fillings, some wear, and they're not listening. What's been your experience? Because you're somebody that's in the op all day long. What do you see?
Yeah, I will tell you that, we're not going to whiten someone who has, rapid decay and things like that. But I can tell you that it's so important when people come in, if they want to whiten first, it's the time. And I always say, doctors really want to know, how can they get more patients? How can they do these things? One of the things about this appointment is my doctor is not limiting me on the time. He knows that if I spend more time with that patient, now listen, I'm taking photos, I take a really good retractors with a shade tab. I actually print it out and I print the ugliest photo on big paper. Here you go. I want them to take it with them. And we're looking at their teeth. And I will talk a little bit about some of the things that I see, some of the things that they might see. But we run it as a special. We get them in that chair and we go ahead and do the whitening because it is something that they want. It is something that they feel changes their lives. And then after that, one of the things that I do is I'm thinking with my doctor for those 2 weeks while they're whitening, right? They usually do like 14 days. They'll come back. I'm ready. He and I already talked about what else do we need to do on this patient. And I'll kind of set the tone for him. I'll say, now listen, Nancy, you got a great result today. Let's look at where you were and let's see where you are now. And a lot of my patients will get it. If you're really serious and you schedule that next appointment, they know you're going to be looking. And I'll tell them, hey, listen, I've done a lot of whitening. So if you come in here and tell me you did it, I'm going to know whether you did or not, and I'm quiet, right? Like you said, I take it real serious, but I think if we have to look at what is next, I'm not there to sell them on dentistry, but that time that I spent with them, who better to say, hey, listen, this looks great, but you still got that crowding on the lower. And I know you told me you didn't wear your retainer. We might want to start looking at that maybe next, or we might want to start looking at these abfractions because everything looks beautiful, but that is still there, right. Or these silver fillings are really standing out now because these teeth are really white and I really see them now. So I think those are the things we have to look at and teaching the team to be able to have that conversation and feel really confident that we're not selling, we're educating. And it has to come from here. It has to come, from their voice, giving them the dialogues and all of that and the verbiage to really feel confident. But you said it more than anyone, the more photos that we take, you got to have that before and after up on the screen. Right. And I bring the doctor in. I say, hey, doctor, take a look at where we were. I got to show you. Wait till you see where she was, and where we are today. And we celebrate together with the patient, Right. It uplifts them. Now we got to look at what else are we seeing. And I think that's when, if you take it serious, give them what they want, and then remember what's coming next, but also having the team be ready for that second appointment. Now's the time, because if we're just there to do a whitening check, you really didn't do your due diligence, right? And so that's how we're going to train the team, and that's how we're going to educate them with the verbiage, having a workbook that they can go through and really know, what do I say? How do I look at other treatment without looking like I'm trying to sell them on what was next? Because that's what we really wanted from the beginning, but we went ahead and gave them what they wanted. Now we need to get what we really wanted to do.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you the controversial questions that always come up. People always say, is there a shade that's too white? Because sometimes if teeth glow in the dark, is that too much? There's the thought processes have changed in this, because when whitening first came on the scene, people were like, no way. They resisted it. And that's typically what happens when anything new comes to a great profession like this. But what is too white? Is there no too white? Is beauty in the eye of the beholder? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I'll tell you, Kirk, I remember when I used to white my teeth. It's a wonder I'm not even dead, right? I mean, I white my teeth all the time. Now I got restorative. To me, there's no such thing as too white, right? Right. I say this in my whole career of all the patients I've seen in working with Ross Nash, working with Gary Rads, working with John Cranham, working with now Dr. Corman, Cappy Sinclair. I will tell you, I've never had anybody tell me their teeth are too white. But one of the things that you have to be you have to really communicate with the patient is, what are they looking for? Now, team members, you cannot tell patients, hey, you're going to get 4 real Vita shades, because we are dealing with the human body and the compliance really lays on that patient, right? Right. But if I have patients now, Shannon, I don't want them to be glow in the dark white. The best part about that is to say, listen, Nancy, you have the right to stop at any given time that you feel is good for you. Because I do want them to do that. The other thing is that I have a really great shade guide, and I wish I had one here. It's from Ultradent. Okay. And one of the things about this shade tab is it has all the shades on it. And what I'll do is I'll circle that shade and I'll write it on here on the little paper. I'll also put their name on it. And there's a lot of studies, with that customization of this is where you are and this is where, today where you're starting. I'll bend it. And then circle it. And it's funny how those things will come back with the patient. It looks like a dog's been chewing on it. I mean, they are looking, right? I'm like, we've been eating it, Yeah. But they love it. But I will tell you that if I do have patients, and I have, that really only want like 2 shades lighter, they're not looking for bright paper white. They really can stop at any given time. And that's the beauty of whitening. But I will tell you, I'll tell them, don't stop too soon, because it will relapse. And that's one thing you don't want to do, right? Is to tell them, keep going for at least 4 to to 5 days because, it starts getting lighter, but it's also going to back off a little bit.
Right.
But I think give them that shade guide is the ticket because now even in hygiene, we're checking shade as part of the chart.
Yeah.
So we'll have patients that sit in the chair and my hygienist will say, hey, Jane, hold this mirror. Let's look at where you are because we know teeth colors, teeth changes color over a long period of time. So let's see where you are, But the most important thing is you don't want to say, oh, it's A3. Oh, that's not so bad, And I had to say that with my team members. I said, hey, listen, don't tell them it's that bad. What shade are your teeth? And they'll say, oh, my teeth is like B1. And I'm like, well, then what if you had A3? Would you say that's bad? And she was like, no, I didn't think about that. So we've got all these in hygiene now. It's part of the record. So when they come in, that's the first thing we ask. And let's look together and let's see where you are. And that's how we're able to even bring up more whitening. That really is what's feeding my chair. I'll tell you, it's really been a blessing to see all these people. They come from my hygienist and I thank them every day. I'm like, without you, they would not be in my chair. I really appreciate that because it's a team effort, right? Can't get them in by myself. So.
It is. And I'll say this about you because I've seen you work with patients and do what you do so well. Please don't look at this as the only component that's going to improve the relationship with the patient. They're just, you're combining the emotional, the listening. There's a lot of other things going on here other than just the whitening component. I mean, you're making deep connections with these people throughout your entire column in that day that you're doing this. Correct? Right.
Correct. And the thing is you got to look and give your team when they first start the time. Because remember, it was about the end treatment, right? Whatever we're going to do in restorative. So when they first start out, I tell doctors, hey, do it on a Friday or do it on a Monday. Do it on a day where you really know it's not going to be, maybe Monday might not be the best day. But do it on a day where you're not crazy busy. But if you have 2 assistants, having one of those assistants work that column and that's all they do. But start out with more time so they can get their spiel down. Because once you've got that verbiage, it's just repetitive. Everything in dentistry is repetitive. But I need to be able to explain the difference. I need to be able to ask them, what type of whitening have you done before? And how did that work for you? And if they say, hey, I did whitening, but I never wore my trays. Well, then what's going to be the difference today, right? What's going to make that difference today? Because I don't want a patient to come in and say, I didn't get the results I was looking for. And most of the time it does come from them, right? But that team does need that time. And I want them to have the time to get it down and to be efficient. And after, a couple of weeks, they're going to be able to see so many more patients. We're going to be able to do our follow-ups as well because that is critical. When they sit up, I make that next appointment right there because I want to see them in 2 weeks. And I also want to make sure that they start today. Because every day, don't skip a day. And really people say, well, what's the best products too? Honestly, a peroxide is a peroxide. I mean, I use a lot of Ultradent products, but, there's a lot of great ones out there. Horaeus has some good ones. SDI has good ones. It really is going to come from you making sure they are consistent with it, doing every day until they see you again, 14 days, whatever that regimen is, because it doesn't come from the product. It comes from the time. And so I think those instructions have got to be just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. What other pitfalls have you seen when you go down the path of whitening? Because a lot of people try this and then they give up or it doesn't become a regular system.
I think it has to be excitement. It's what makes us different. When I go out, all my team wears scrubs in my practice, but on that day, I'm wearing my white lab coat. So I'm a little bit different, and my team knows it's not that I'm trying to pretend like I'm better than them at all, right? I couldn't do it without them. But when I go out there and I get that patient, I am serious about what I'm doing. It is something about that white lab coat that, man, they know I'm here for a reason. And the other thing is that, Dr. Sinclair made me these cards and it says whitening specialist. And I will tell you, Kirk, that when I am done, in our courses, we give them a certificate. So when a patient walks in my room and they see that white certificate with that seal on it, they know this is the right place and I'm the right person to be doing this, right? There's no specialists in dentistry, but we've just taken more courses, to learn more about this. And I think that really does say and speak words itself. And what I'll do is when I give my patient my card for the next appointment, or for or Dr. Sinclair's card, or Dr. Corman's card, whoever's office, because I work in 2, I will basically give them another appointment card. And I'll say, listen, this is if you know anybody that might be interested in whitening. And Kirk, I want to tell you, I get the mother, the brother, the sister. I got somebody's pharmacist one time. I'm like, where did the pharmacist come in? That's a different story. But anyway, but we laugh and we joke about this. But I will tell you, it makes people happy. We're always running a special. People say, well, how often do you run this special? Forever. Patients don't know that, right? They think it's a special, right? Everything's a
Right.
special. You want to hear about the special? But I will tell you, it makes people happy. It is my absolute favorite day of the week. If I could do whitening every day, life would be just peachy keen. I'm so passionate about it, but it's what I get back, not just what we give, but what I get back at the end of the day.
Right.
And I love it. I'm serious. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things we forget. Everybody wants a special or a deal. Not that you have to discount everything, but even in my favorite stuff, I mean, whatever, I'm like, okay, well, great, let's do it. So, and I love the enthusiasm that you have for everything. I mean, you're very authentic. You can get anybody excited about dentistry or future possibilities, but keeping everybody else excited too, that's a challenge. What are some of the things that you do to keep everybody excited about this?
Yeah, I tell them where we are, I'm like, I joke with my team in the huddle in the mornings. I'd be like, man, I didn't get lunch. Look at you guys, man. Y'all are like cramming them in here, And they're like, I remember telling my doctor, I said, hey, listen, dude, I'm like, look at my column and look at yours. Right. He says, I know, I like it. I'm like, I bet you do.
Yeah.
But it is exciting. And listen, I do little things for my team to thank them for this, because I think at the end of the day, it is about team. And sometimes there's a little bit of that barrier, let's be honest here, between hygienist and assistant. Sometimes, we see that, right? And we have to change that. I mean, and we've talked about that, your team with us, we have to break that mold. And I will tell you, every day that I'm in my practice, at the end of the day, I go to every one of my hygienists and I thank them. And that is something that not a lot of us do. But without them, I wouldn't have those people, right? They're the ones that's talking about it. They're the ones that's really making those patients get into my chair. And I think throughout the practice, I mean, you look at these manufacturers too, if you don't have anything that says you do whitening, how are you ever going to do it? And I don't want to spend the money. I'm not a fan of Groupons because I felt like, it really is something that keeps us from really lowering that fee. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that you charge a less fee and be able to get people to say yes. And at the end, you will make more money if you do it the right way. But you got to look at what marketing do you have in your practice? Do you have it on the website? Are you giving those cards away? In our bathroom, I went in, I shut the door, I sat on the toilet, I put a nice big poster right there at eye level.
Yeah.
You got bring it up. And I think those are something that we have these little samples. We're giving samples of the whitening strips. I mean, that is really important to get people excited. But when I tell my team where we are and what treatment has come, I think that's when they get really excited about, hey, remember that patient last year that wouldn't say yes? We did the whitening and now she's saying yes. Or that patient that wanted Invisalign and they wouldn't do it. And then we do whitening and now they want to do Invisalign. I mean, there's a lot of great things that come from this. And it's a celebration together because it is total team. Without my team, we can't do it. So I think just bringing it up and talking about it and looking at those numbers is important. And pretty soon, hopefully, you'll have as many practices out there that'll do this on one day. And you'll be surprised what it'll do for your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I have to ask you about the photography component because that's one of the things that you get pushed back from too. Some dentists want to hold on to that camera forever. And then teaching your team members, you do such a fabulous job. How many photos are you taking? The assistants are all taking these photos. How long does it take? Because I do get those questions.
Yeah, I will tell you, when I'm doing whitening, I take 3 really important photos, okay? Now, usually when we're doing our records or whatever, we're taking a full series. But for whitening, I kind of start over. So I don't care if we already had a full series. It might have been with a different camera. I love utilizing a Shofu camera. It's my favorite for this because it does have a whitening mode. It weighs like 2 pounds. But I'll take a really nice from the shoulders up full face, because you can't get it back, right? The ultimate goal for me and for you should be to make a really good portfolio. People want to see those befores and afters with that whitening. And let me tell you, I've done close to 3,400 whitening cases. So people want to see it. And the more you do, the more you'll know when you're looking at those shades, really what is the right, what color do we think we're going to get? Now, I never say that to the patient, but again, I've done a lot now, so I kind of can look at it and tell pretty much. But I don't want to lose an opportunity to have a beautiful, nice, full face to use that. I don't like cardstock photography for my website. We don't like it for our books and our practice. We want real people that are our patients and our stories. And if you didn't get that full face and that shade from the very beginning, you kind of lost your story. So I want to show them full face from the head up. I'll take a really nice smile because people sometimes don't want to see that retracted view.
Right.
But I will take a retracted view with really nice, clear retractors and a Vita guide, a real Vita guide. And I have a little tiny Canon printer. It's really small. It cost me about $30. And what I'll do is I will print that out. And I don't print out the full face or the smile. I print out the biggest photo I can, which is the one retracted with the shade tab. Mm-hmm. And patients, believe it or not, will walk out. And Kirk, I've seen this. I printed out on photo paper. I swear, mm-hmm. My doctor one time, he's like, Shannon, you're crazy. What are you doing? So I will print it out. I gave it to the patient. And you think about it, this is on photo paper. Mm-hmm. They don't bend it. Right. They walk out and they're holding it just like this, right? Mm-hmm. They get in their car and they'll sit it on the seat because they don't want to put it in their pocketbook either because they're worried they might scratch it. And I've watched patients walk out, and I had one lady, she called me, she said, I almost wrecked my car looking at that photo. That was an ugly picture. And I'm like, mm-hmm. I know. That's why I printed it out, right? Mm-hmm. So take those befores and afters. And now when they come back, we take more. I mean, we're going to put them up side by side and say, this is where you were. This is where you are now. Because some patients will say, well, I'm not sure I really got a good result. I don't know, if I really did. And they would be like an A3 and now they're a B1, mm-hmm. So they forget. And again, same thing. I'll take a full phase. I take the, smile, and then I take her shade tab with a retracted view. And again, putting them up side by side, they're like, wow, do you remember where you were? No, mm-hmm. Let's look at it. And then celebrating together again. But photography, you have to do it. I can't tell you how many people don't take the photos. They'll just write in the chart A2. Patient mm-hmm. has no idea what A2 is. Right. No idea. They got to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't take very long to take these photos,
2 seconds. I mean, really,
right.
The more you do, again, everything we do in dentistry is repetitive. The more that you do, the faster you're going to be, the more efficient you're going to be, but it is part of the procedure. It's not something that you can just leave out. It is probably the most important thing you can do is to take the photos because they will forget. And we want to put them up side by side and prove that whatever we use was really good and that they did it. Now, if the photo comes back and it's only like a half a shade, I have to look at them and say, did you really do it? Because the last thing I want, or what happened, here, or sometimes it could be the product that we use, right? I mean, how are we ever going to know what we're using is really good if we don't really take a look at where they were and, where they are now? It's important for so many reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Now take us through, once you finish the whitening process, you mentioned a little bit of it, but engaging them in the bigger conversation. So how would I do that? Let's say I'm a young dentist watching this. I go, Shannon, this is a great idea. But what happens after we do that that whole day? Like, how do I train my team to have the bigger conversation?
Right. So there's a couple things that we do. When a patient comes in and I take those impressions, I don't use alginate. I'll be honest. I don't use alginate. If it's a young adult that I know has no restorative and there's nothing that we're really ever going to do except for whitening, then I might use alginate. But for me, I use a polyvinyl so I can re-pour it multiple times. And what I do is I will take that cast. Now, grant it's not mounted. We don't have face bows. We did do bite records on this one. I will just take those impressions. And so when I do that, I can pour up 2 sets. I always give the patient a set with their whitening trays, but I keep a set. Okay. And what I'm doing is I will sit and talk with the doctor. Hey, what are some of the things that you wanted to do with this patient? And it could have been a patient, maybe I wasn't with him at the time where maybe they did full-blown records and there were some things that were brought up, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe they've got incisal edges, they've got that are worn, they've got, a lot of, changes, chips, wear, all of that. And what I'll do sometimes is while the patient is whitening for those 2 weeks, I'll actually place a little bit of composite on the incisal edges to build them back up just a little bit. But I also talk to my doctor about it, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not a lab technician. I'm not a ceramist. I'm just going to put a little bit of composite on the edges to build them back up. Right. And so what I'll do is I'll do that, and then I make a putty matrix of it. So when a patient comes in, I would say, Jane, everything looks great. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about, what you achieved in this color. I can't believe you got 4 Vita shades. This is incredible. You really did your part. I really talk them up and appreciate the fact that they did it, right? So then I'll say, but listen, I want to show you one more thing. While you were whitening over these last 2 weeks, I know that we've been talking a lot about the wear and a lot about those incisal edges. And I know you understood that they're gone, right? You've worn them away and you don't really have those edges back. But let me show you something. Can you give me 2 more minutes of your time? I'd love to show you what would it look like if we put those back. So what I'll do is since I built it up, I already pre-made a putty matrix, okay? So I take that putty matrix, and what I'll do is I'll take my provisional material, I'll just load it in there just a little bit, and put it on their teeth and let it sit up all the way. Okay. Didn't edge the teeth to do anything. It's just going to stick on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll leave it on there for about a minute and a half, and then I'll pull it off. All those incisal edges were put back. And I say, now let me show you what could be next, what could be possible. And so I'll hand her a mirror, and I will tell you, I swear, true story, this just happened not even just 2 weeks ago. Hand lady the mirror, she goes, oh my gosh. So all I did was put incisal edges back on 6 through 11 and 20 through to 27, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she says, I got to go home and talk to my husband. This is amazing. And I said, well, she says, can I leave this on here? And I said, absolutely. I said, go home, let your husband look at it. I said, and if he wants to talk about it, why don't you both, you can come back in or whatever. So she calls me that night and she goes, I'm going out tomorrow night and it chipped off. Can I come back in your office and put that back on?
Right.
And I was like, no.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought to myself, wow, but we can do it in restorative, jokingly. But I couldn't believe the impact that it has on these patients. My doctor actually told me to stop doing it because he got tired of doing incisal edges, right? Mm-hmm. Or MIFLs. But what is great about that is I'm ready, right? I'm looking at what is next. And that is something that's hard to train probably a new assistant. But if you got an assistant that's really huggy, touchy, feely, really cares, maybe has some artistic ability, and we can train him on that. But I'm just putting back those edges. Now, Grant, I didn't do it on my own. I'm talking to the doctor about it. But I think it goes back to, I didn't take an alginate. I took a polyvinyl. And he and I are looking that morning. Here's a couple of these patients that I saw today, doctor. And I want you to look and tell me, is there anything that we would do? So I have the photos and I've got those models, right? Because if I don't have them ready for me, can't really look at them. And he'll tell me, hey, Shannon, you know what? We could do this, or it'd be better if we did Invisalign, or you know what? I can't do incisal edges on those patients. They're going to break them right off. Okay, well then we'll prepare them for another type of restorative. But I think it goes back to, we got to work together as a team. I got to know, and so does he, what are the plans? Because I'm not a dentist, but I can put that composite back on those edges, and I can show that patient, what we call a little trial smile right there. It takes 2 minutes for it to set up. And I would tell you, I can't tell you how many restorative cases have come from that. I mean, I probably have had 4 to 5 sets of restorative cases, like veneers, crowns, bridge work, things like that, not just direct composite that came from that. So I think it's just being ready, but also being able to look at a smile and know, what would you change? And that is not something that you have to have a DDS license for. It's just knowing what looks good and what could be possible. Sometimes it could be just a little gingivectomy, right? Maybe tissue heights on one lateral is different. Hey, we got a laser, zip, you take that right off. It's just knowing what's possible, I think.
Yeah, and I want to speak to this too, because a lot of people understand this conceptually, but really, if you're watching what Shannon just did, we teach assistants all the time, be honest, be as honest as possible. Don't, in our effort, I heard a hygienist say this in Atlanta. It was great. In our effort not to overwhelm patients, so many times we underwhelm them. We don't tell them the truth, and we just let it go. And I think as a healthcare provider, this is not about manipulating people. It's not about, what we, choosing for them. It's just tell them the truth about what's possible and having a healthy enough self-esteem to be honest. And wouldn't you agree? Like, that's half the battle.
Absolutely. And listen, I will tell you this, when we sat down and we looked at these fees, I told my doctor, I said, listen, you got to trust me to know that if the patient is an A2, they could do the pre-filled system and get just as good as a result as we did a custom tray. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to base it upon whatever they need. I'm not going to take somebody's $99 versus someone's $50 and the end result be the same, because at night, you and I both have to sleep, right, at the end of the day. But what has happened from that is, because maybe the patient was coming in for an in-office for $199, but they were a really easy shade to whiten, we were able to take that money. And this is exactly what I said. Hey, listen, one of the great things about this today is that you are an A2. A's and B's can really do just about anything and get a great result. You can do a pre-filled system for $50, or you could do the custom tray, you could do the in-office and custom tray. But there's some things I want to talk to you about real quick, if you give me permission to tell you what I see. And it was just that. On the lateral, she had a lot. On number 7 was really short, and number 10 was a lot higher, just gingival heights. And I said, I always want to just make sure, and just identify, does that bother you? Some patients maybe never see it. And, with permission, I'd love to just ask you that first. And she said, you know what, Shannon, it does bother me. She said, sometimes I feel like I'm a little kid. I've always had that. And I said, based upon, if the doctor comes in, we can have him assess that and see if you have enough tissue there. Is it something that we could maybe do the $50 pre-filled whitening and put the money towards the, just taking a laser, getting a little numb and zipping that. I said, in the end, guess what? It would have been so close to $199. We still get you a great whitening result, and we could fix that little tissue. And so he came in, we talked about it right there over the patient, talking together. He said, let's lay you back. Let's take a look. And she had been a patient, Kirk, for 7 years.
Wow.
7 years, and nobody ever brought it up. So as soon as he walked out and I dismissed her, I went straight back to his office. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm like, 7 years. And he said, Shannon, sometimes we don't look at things the way you do. And I said, you know what? It all goes back to the photos. We're not putting the retractors in and removing those lips to look at the heights of those teeth. So it's not just the teeth. We're looking at the tissue. I'm looking at everything. And something so small ended up doing $50 and $125 for him. That took him 5 minutes to get her numb, zip that laser, and she is the happiest patient. And it's not a sale. At the end of the day, if patients say, am I going to get the same results with the custom take home or the in-office? I have to say yes. You're just going to have to work a little bit harder, but it's totally up to you. Because, if I start selling them out of the gate and start selling them things, they're not going to trust me. And I've wasted all this time I spent. I wasted all this time. To me, it's about building that relationship, building that trust, where whitening is so little, but the ultimate goal is if they need more, you're going to get more because you're going to make them happy, and we're not selling them. But I am thinking about what is next, because there are things that I know if that were my mom or my sister, I'd do. And I think that's what's really important. You hit it on it.
Absolutely. Well, this is one of the biggest missed opportunities in dentistry. I heard you and I have great working relationships with Pete Dawson, and he was such a great mentor. But I heard him say years ago, you have a practice within your practice, sometimes two practices, just dentistry that hasn't been discussed, talked about, and all too often we see dentists now just focused all on new patients. And so you are selecting patients within the practice, the ReCare system, selectively to come back. Like, how do you do that? Give us some perspective on that, because this isn't just for new patients.
No, I will tell you. Absolutely. No, most of the people that are in my chair, which is crazy. If you look at the whitening and what you have done, that's what I would say is go back a couple of months and pull the record. See how much you've done. I can tell you it's probably been under 10, right? A month, maybe, most practices. That's usually what I hear. And that's a big eye opener. So do that first, see how much you've done. But I can tell you almost all my patients come from patients that were already in our practice. And what we'll say, and this has worked so well, and I can give this to anyone that's watching the show, anybody that goes to your website, it was basically 6 questions. So when patients were coming in, let's say Jennifer is going to take them back to do their cleaning, what I would say is, Nancy, I know you've been a patient of ours for a long period of time, and one of the things we want to do is just kind of update some questions that maybe we might not have asked you in a while. So while we're waiting on Jennifer to come out and get you, do you mind just filling out this quick questionnaire? And it says, do you like the color of your teeth? Do you feel there's spaces where food get caught? Are there any areas that you feel, or any edges that are short and worn? Do you feel your teeth are crowded? It's 6 easy questions. Do you know that at the end of the day, we write the patient's name on that at the top? Okay. And so at the end of the day, we look at it, right? Because I will tell you, I have 7 hygienists in one of my practices that I work in. Wow. If that person comes back and they did not address what they checked off, man, we got to talk about it, right? So what happens, though, is it's accountability, too. Because when the patient goes back, if I tell you I got a space where I am catching food, we got to do something, right? That's like ding, 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 ding. I don't need to say, is there anything bothering you? No, right. I already have it. If you ever thought about, do you ever thought about whitening, or do you like the color of your teeth? You said no. That's the easiest thing to do. Then it's a silent thing, right? It's just something they're filling out. Because I think we assume because they were a patient of record, they've already done it or they're not interested. And we never really ask them again. We're so worried about the health history, but we're not worried about what we didn't ask them. And so I would really encourage you to do that, because I'll tell you, more whitening comes from that. More restorative comes from that, because if a patient's got an open contact and food is getting stuck in there, I better bring it up. I better say something to the doctor about it, right? So it really is a great thing, and we do it on every existing patient, and we have done that now for the last 6 months, because we really have put whitening at the top of our list to see what has come from it. And Kirk, do you know last year, true story, I worked 22 days last year, and more than $280,000 in restorative came out of whitening.
Wow.
280. Now that's Invisalign. That's, veneers, crowns, inlays, onlays, direct composites, incisal edges, implants, so much dentistry. And it wasn't about me. My team helped me get it. We planted the seed. But, we can train you. There's nothing different. I'm an assistant just like anybody else. We can train your team to do this and do it right, but take it really serious. I think that is where we make the mistake. We hand the trays over the counter, and I am so guilty of that. I did that before. I didn't even worry if the tray really fit. I didn't even try it in sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I got to do it right. Got to take it serious.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to ask you this question because you're so involved with the manufacturers and the products. What are some of the things that we're going to see on the horizon with Whitening?
I love it. Okay, so we just got something new, all right, last week. I will tell you, not even been released yet, from Crest. And it's their new white strips. And the new white strips is basically a hydrogen peroxide. And you're not going to be able to sell it over the counter. They're really trying to get back to the practices, right? And really protect our practices. And so I love that. I'm really excited about this. I've done now close to 100 patients with this new white strips, and it has been released as of this morning, which is pretty exciting. And I didn't even tell you this. So we had it this past weekend with us when we were up at the Star of the North. We gave it to all the team members that came in for a new dental materials update. And I am so excited. I'll tell you what is funny about this white strips is that I always try it on my family first, right? We always use them first, or friends. And my husband put it on and he went to sleep. And one of the things about these pre-filled systems is they do move around. It's like tape with whitening on it, right? And patients will say, hey, I was running on a treadmill and that thing came off, right? And I'm like, it's tape with whitening on it. Well, Eric, my husband, put this on and went to sleep. And, after an hour, it's a hydrogen. It pretty much dies. Hydrogen will die after, a certain period of time. But I will tell you that strip was still on that next morning. I mean, you got to pull it off. But what I like about it is, man, it is strong. A hydrogen, just so your listeners are knowing this about chemicals, because we're not trained about chemicals a lot of times, or we don't read directions. We're the worst. So hydrogen is really a lot stronger than what we call carbamide. Carbamide is what comes in the syringe. So carbamide is only a third as strong as hydrogen. So if you gave me a 35% carbamide, it's like a 12% hydrogen. Okay, so people hear 35, they think 35, right? I want 35. Well, you got to look and see if that's carbamide or if that's hydrogen, right? So I will tell you, these strips, I mean, they can burn the fire out of you if you're not careful, but the way that they made them, they're actually way off the gum line, and you only can get them from a dentist. And so these are Crest white strips, and they have a little light. Now, I got to be honest with you. I totally don't believe in the light, right? But you know what? It hypnotizes the patient. They think they're getting something. Who knows? But use it to your advantage. But that is brand new. That is something that was just released. And I am really excited about the befores and afters of that. I've gotten patients that have had 4 real Vita shades. I shoot everything in RAW because we do so much writing, right? And people want to make sure they believe us. We didn't Photoshop it. And then the other thing is this whole perio outlook. I got a letter from a company that asked me to please cease and desist.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They weren't too happy with me because I had a young adult that wasn't brushing her teeth, and I basically took SDI has a 3% hydrogen peroxide. And so I was giving her those whitening trays, and I told her to put the 3% in for an hour a day and do it for 14 days. It wasn't because her teeth were discolored. It was because she really was not brushing her teeth and taking good care of it. She had a lot of biofilm, a lot of plaque. And the one thing that, my mentor, who I give all the credit for, is Dr. Van Haywood. He teaches at the Medical College of Georgia. He's done thousands of whitening cases, and I believe everything that he says because he is the real deal. And hydrogen eats the biofilm, right? So if you got a teenager that's not really brushing the way they should, and you got all this plaque buildup, I will tell you that we just made them a whitening tray. We put that 3% in. They work for an hour a day. The results were amazing. And I'm going to say that again. They were incredible. It's a real low dose of peroxide, but it just ate right through the biofilm. And we're doing that now in our young adults. If mom comes in and says, they're not brushing like they should, you want to think about these peroxide trays and making them a whitening tray and put a low percentage. So Ultradent has always been a really great system that I've used. They have 3 systems, so I love that. So does Horaeus. But I'll tell you, Crest white strips, man, they are common. I mean, and SDI's got the 3%. They're getting ready to do a whitening pen that's a 10% hydrogen where you just brush it on. So, between Crest and SDI, they're going to be giving these other 2 manufacturers a run for their money. So we'll keep you updated on it and let you know how it's going.
Yeah, this is awesome. Now, I know people are going to have lots and lots of questions. You not only are brilliant behind the actual products, but also the training. You do the training, right? You train teams on how to do this. Okay, so you not only do the assisting training for us, but you do them for other people. How can people get a hold of you, and where do I start?
Super. Well, two things that we're doing. We're going to be loading these modules and really having a great online presence through Ag Dental. I mean that because we think it's really important, to really educate your team. But how do we find this person in your practice is the right person to be doing this and making sure that they know more about anybody else on it, right? Because they're going to have to own it. So we're going to be creating this module on the Ag Dental website. And then we're also going to have a download for you. So this way you can really walk back through everything we talked about today. And they can always go to our contemporaryproductsolutions.com. And then we just started a new academy for assistants. So here in just about a month or so, we'll have our own assistant school. Thanks to you, Kirk, and all of our great team members. I mean, right now we got about 61 assistants helping us throughout the U.S. and Canada. And I would tell you, I couldn't do this without them. We're so blessed. And we want to help as many teams accomplish this and raise up our assistants because we love them, right? Without the whole team, we couldn't do this. So thank you. And thank you for having an assistant on your show because that says a lot about you. I mean it. A lot of times sometimes are forgotten about, but not by you. And that does not go unnoticed. I mean it. I want to thank you for your appreciation for us because sometimes we don't see that and it means a lot.
Well, absolutely. And well, not only have you been an incredible friend, incredible educator, but also speak to this. Dentistry is a team sport. There's no dentist that I've ever met in 20 years of doing this. They're like, no. I answer my own calls. I do everything myself. I don't have any team. You can't, it's impossible. And you also know that once you find the right people and you give them the tools to excel, it changes your whole entire life. I mean, it makes you a happier dentist. So it couldn't be more important than, having everybody together working on the same page. So I am so crazy grateful. And we're going to do a lot of these on different components. And I'm so excited to see your assisting school because heaven knows we need it. And assistants have been craving it for a very, very long time. So it's awesome. So thank you so much. Now, if you're watching this and you have questions, please, I'm going to encourage you to add the questions to the feed. Shannon will go back to you. We'll make sure you get all the tools that you're looking for. And then Shannon, the download on those 6 questions. I know we didn't have it during the live, but if I'll get it, we'll put it up there and we'll make sure everybody has an opportunity to use it because it is fantastic. I've seen it before. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And stick around here, Shannon. Just stay on for a few minutes. I want to talk to you. But for those of you watching, thank you so much for watching. Really, really appreciate it. We are so grateful for you. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. You guys have a great day. Thank you so much.